I want to address the signing of 23-year-old and former 2023 third-round pick defensive tackle Byron Young. Now, the story goes as such. The Philadelphia Eagles decided to claim Byron Young off of waivers. And he spent his first year of his career with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders, they decided to move on from him after only playing in 6 games as a rookie. He accumulated 99 snaps on defense and 14 snaps on special teams. He really didn't get too much NFL action in his rookie year. So it was kind of hard to really judge this brother, right? Again, Byron Young, he's only 23 years old. He's 6'3", 292 pounds. He played his college career at Alabama, where he put up 8 sacks and 22.5 tackles for loss over the course of 4 seasons. Now, you may ask yourself, why would the Raiders move on or just give up on a guy that's so early in his career? Why would you give up on a guy that you just drafted last year? And quite frankly, when I hear that and when I see that, the first thing I say to myself is, come on, it's the Raiders. How much stock can we put into the Las Vegas Raiders' decision-making? Have the Raiders built up any equity over the past, 30 years? Let's be honest about this. How much stock can we put into the Raiders front office? How much stock can we put into their coaching staff, their evaluators? How much stock can we put into those guys, right? And quite frankly, once again, there's never much rhyme or reason to the Raiders' madness. And to add context, the Raiders, they've experienced a new regime change. They're experiencing a front office turnover like no other. They're experiencing a coaching turnover like no other. They fired Josh McDaniel in the middle of the season. They fired him before December. They fired their damn near the whole coaching staff before December, elevated Antonio Pierce, and then they decided to commit to him long term, or at least for the next 3 or 4 years. And then you went from the John Gruden, Mike Mayock group, and now you're in the Telesco front office, right? And there was a front office in between the Mayock group and the Telesco group. I'm not well versed on Raiders knowledge in the front office, but over the course of the past, I want to say over the past, 5-6 years, they've gone through 3 wholesale front office and coaching changes. How can I put stock in guys that move that way? How can I put stock in the words or the evaluation of an organization that has an owner with a bowl cut? I'm just saying. So I think the Byron Young addition, a lot of you guys called it, by the way. A lot of you guys spoke on Byron Young being released, and a lot of you guys spoke on the Philadelphia Eagles potentially making a move for him. And I said it on Twitter. Eagles fans, you called it. You called it. You had it. You had the foresight, knowing Howie Roseman would make the move to further solidify that defensive line. Another argument somebody may make. One argument another person could make about this move that the Eagles made and the Raiders made is, if he's such a good player, then why would they release him? If he has so much talent, why would they release him? If they didn't know what they had, or if they knew what they had, why would they release him, right? Teams don't release good players. Teams don't cut or trade good players. It happens all the time. Teams cut good players all the time. Teams release and waive good players all the time. Teams trade good players all the time. We've seen players leave the Philadelphia Eagles, a la Russell Douglas, and carve out a solid career for themselves elsewhere. We've seen it. So I'm not going to sit here and jump out the window and say, oh my God, the Philadelphia Eagles are jumping the gun. It's an overcorrection. This kid's a bust. They let him go for a reason. Life isn't always that simple. Like I said, how much stock are we really willing to put into the Las Vegas Raiders when it comes to their front office decisions, when it comes to their coaching? And I like Antonio Pierce. He's a former Giant, so I should hate him, but I like what he did for the Raiders last year. He kind of stabilized the ship. And he's a black man as a head coach. I want him to succeed. But the reality is, again, teams release good players all the time. And the Raiders, or anyone for that matter, hasn't seen enough from Byron Young to make any sweeping generalization or declaration that he's a good player or a bad player. I'm not even here to say Byron Young is a great player. I'm not even here to say he's a good player, but I'm definitely not here to say Byron Young is a bad player. I'm definitely not here to say that. You will not hear me say that. You will not hear me say he's great or good. You will not hear me say he's bad either. I'm Switzerland on Byron Young. I'm neutral. The Eagles wanted to take a shot on him to add to their defensive tackle depth. I think it's a risk worth taking. Because, and again, to add to this, to make room for Byron Young, the Philadelphia Eagles had to move on from Marlon Tuipulotu. Now, don't be surprised if Marlon Tuipulotu makes it to the Eagles practice squad. He's a nose tackle. They have value for that. Don't be surprised if he doesn't make it back to the practice squad. They did draft him, of course. But on top of that, we kind of do know what the Marlon Tuipulotu show is. We know what he is. We know who he is. Right? We've seen the limitations to his game. So I'm not mad at the Philadelphia Eagles taking a shot on the Alabama product and Byron Young, who's only been in the NFL for a season and only played in 6 games, and who's currently experienced coaching turnover in his rookie year and front office turnover in his rookie year. The people that drafted him, the people that evaluated him, are no longer in the building. So I wouldn't put it past the Raiders to totally want to move on from all the assets from the previous regime. Organizations, teams do that. Coaches and GMs, they come in and they clean house. So when you think about it from the perspective of Byron Young being added to a defensive tackle room that consists of Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Moro Ojomo, and Thomas Booker, someone who's making strides in their game, Thomas Booker, Moro Ojomo, who's been the darling of training camp and preseason for the Philadelphia Eagles on that defensive line, Jordan Davis, someone who we know has the talent, has the skill set, has the athleticism, just got to get that conditioning and that nutrition right. I think this is the season that happens for Jordan Davis. And then you got Jalen Carter, the Georgia product, the grizzly bear, the baby rhino, who dominates the opposition in front of him, who's definitely looking to take that next step in his development and in his production, has potential to be one of the best defensive tackles that we've seen for the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously, many people have laid the foundation for him, and he has a lot to prove. But he has the talent, has the skill set, has the ferocity to get it done. So you drop Byron Young in a room full of talented players like this, oh man, we can't put a ceiling on this young man's development. It would be unfair. It would be unreasonable for me to say this player is a bust. And it will also be unreasonable for me to say this player is going to set the world on fire. You guys already know. Here at Chalking Up Sports, we're going to be honest. We're going to keep it real. And most of all, you're going to get my perspective. That's a lot of talent in that room. It's a lot of talent. And again, because he's not far removed from the college game, he just got here basically, didn't play much last year. You don't really have much to gauge him on. You don't really have much film. You don't really have too much of a stat line to really gauge him on. Because top to bottom, the Raiders were a dumpster fire. I can't judge anybody fairly if you play for the Raiders. I can't. It's near impossible. The glasses, the lens is too foggy. The waters are too muddy over there. I can't gauge anybody fairly if you play for the Raiders. It's hard. So again, he was a rookie last year. Only played in 6 games. Am I right to write this young man off? That wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair to him. It wouldn't be fair to y'all. I owe it to y'all to keep it real and be as pragmatic yet optimistic as I can. Like I said, this room has a ton of talent in it. The D tackles, the D line. But focusing on the D tackles for right now, a lot of talent. We know the expectations are high for this D line. And this is what we're going to talk about today, the defensive line. But I also want to get to your comments because we're going to talk about the defensive line. We're going to get more in depth on the defensive line after our interview with our very special guest that will be here in about 10 minutes, 9 minutes and counting. I want to get to your comments here. Make sure you guys smash that like button on the way in. Make sure you guys smash it on the way out. You guys are tuned in to Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. I'm your humble host, Tone DeShields II. If you're not familiar, thank you so much for being here. Get comfortable. I appreciate all newcomers. Let's get to the first super chat of the evening, or the afternoon, rather. Excuse me. Living in a time zone or living in a time warp. Shep, who has regularly shown love to your boy, who's regularly shown love to the show. Shep says, Shalom, Tone. Keep up the good work. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds. Yes, sir. You already know how we give it up here, man. I appreciate you for always investing in the content, investing in me. I really do appreciate you, big dog. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's get to your comments. Punjab Kings fan, what's going on, my friend? What's going on? Cameron Holmes says we got some great college games tomorrow. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cody said, Tone, buy me a sandwich. I'm hungry. I will not. Shout out to my man Cody, man. I appreciate you. Big Rhythm. Big Rhythm says, Tone, apparently the home team at the stadium, primary color is black. So the Eagles are adopting it for their home game. Okay, so it is officially a home game for Philadelphia. Great. I love it. I love it. Fanny Eagles fan says, we can't wait 2 to 3 years for a first rounder to develop. Well, he's not a first rounder. He's a third rounder. I want to make that very clear, by the way, you guys. He's a third rounder. Byron Young. Now, Fanny, I don't know if you're talking about someone else. You could be. But as far as Byron Young goes, he's a third round pick, not a first rounder, a third round pick. So even then, expectations should be moderate when judging a third round defensive tackle. Twiz says all the players have talent. They got to want it. Abso-freaking-lutely. Twiz, you nailed it. At the end of the day, talent gets you in the door. Want to, desire, and grit and work ethic keeps you in the building. Donald Roan, he says defensive players. Linebacker and lineman usually make that jump in second and third year. Let's hope that's the case for a lot of these guys we have on the roster. Flexing and Steppin says, Max Crosby, you can't judge, Tone? Come on, Flexing. Be realistic, bro. Stop being facetious. Max Crosby is an anomaly. He's a tremendous player in a terrible situation. Same thing with Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, they're tremendous players in terrible situations. Those guys have been established for years. So when I'm talking about young talent, guys that you just bring in, guys that are developing, and they're basically inheriting a dumpster fire of a franchise, it's pretty hard to judge those gentlemen. There are certain players who are able to outplay their circumstances. Not many players have that capability. Max Crosby is an anomaly. Not many players in this league are capable of outplaying their situation. He's the 1% of the NFL. The real RMP says, I wish we picked up the linebacker Byron Young from the Rams. David Dalrymple, he says Dean might start over Devin. He seems to be outplaying him. If Dean starts over anybody, it's going to be Zach Bond. Like, come on, be realistic. There are certain players who are able to outplay their situations. You're talking about the 1% of the NFL. Simple as that. The 1%. Not many players are capable of outplaying their situation. Like, he didn't even touch the field. He barely was on the field. I can understand if he played 17 games and you got nothing. He played in 6 games. 99 defensive snaps. How do you know what somebody is in 99 snaps? That's basically 2 games worth. A 3rd-round pick. Relax. I got to relax. Big Chris says Jalen Carter is who I'm watching. Absolutely. Absolutely. Fanny says Davis needs to lay off the pasta. Y'all funny, man. Donald Roan says, stop judging players that had a bad year or no playing time. Dean, Nolan, Huff, Davis. Give them the benefit of the doubt, at least for the first 3 to 4 games. Yeah, that's reasonable. That's reasonable, right? I mean, when you got a guy, I mean, at the end of the day, organizations are taking calculated risk on so many players. Organizations are betting on players, right? Okay, you did this here. I'm betting that you can do it elsewhere, right? We gotta be again. Everybody in here is not really willing to have a constructive conversation. Some people are just here to entertain and troll, which is fine. It's the internet. Let's have fun with it, right? No big deal. But every now and again, there comes a time where you have to settle down and have a real conversation. And the real conversation is, it's really hard to judge a guy like Byron Young who only played in 6 games, 99 defensive snaps. I can't gauge that player for who he is or who he's going to be. I can't. All I know is I respect the Philadelphia Eagles for swinging. I respect the Philadelphia Eagles for always trying to stay ahead of the curve. Appreciate that. Drew Anderson says, good college player. Change of energy could be good. That's all. New situation, new team, new organization. He's in a winning situation now. That could bring out the best of a player. And Maria says he can only play up to the talent surrounding him. Yeah, sometimes when you just that Raiders defense was, oh my God, it was bad. Darlene Motion says Jordan Davis is lazy. Wow. Well, we'll see, man. We'll see. There's a lot to be desired. There's a lot to be desired when it comes to your Philadelphia Eagles right now, especially on the defensive side. And there's so much to get into. There's so much to discuss as it pertains to your Philadelphia Eagles, right? So many questions, so many predictions, so many concerns.